Thank you. My name's Jason Moon. I'm a combat veteran. I'm a PTSD sufferer, and I'm a suicide survivor. I'm a songwriter, I'm an entertainer, and I use music to educate. And for the next 90 minutes, I'm going to attempt to use all those experiences to help you better understand veterans. I want to give you my outline real quick. I'm going to tell you about my personal experience as a veteran and my struggles with post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm going to give you a breakdown, very fast and rough, about what PTSD is and how it goes on in the brains of veterans. Then I'm going to talk to you about your encounters with veterans, 7 things you should never say to a veteran. And I'm going to conclude with what you should say if you encounter a veteran. And here's my thesis. This is the whole point of this conversation. This is, if we can change the way we think and talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, we will save lives and lessen the suffering in the lives of veterans. If I can get everyone in this room here to change the way they think and talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, we will lessen suffering in the lives of veterans, and we will ultimately be able to save lives. So let's just begin. Where does war begin? This is a question I get asked a lot. Where does it begin? It began for me when I was deployed to Iraq in 2003 with the 724th Combat Engineer Unit. It began for me the moment I had to turn to everything I was leaving behind. And that was my 3-year-old son at the time. When you realize you're going into combat at the beginning of a war, the most important things are what you leave behind, because you hope to return to them when the war is over. So that's what I want you to focus on, and that's what I was focusing on as I left. My 3-year-old son. I had about 6 hours before I needed to report to Fort McCoy, and he was sleeping, and I didn't want to wake him up. And I had to say goodbye to him. So I wrote him a song. I know you're sleeping and I know you're tired, and I don't want to make you cry, but tonight, my son, may be the last night you ever see me alive. 'Cause tomorrow your father is marching off to war. The last words that I leave for you is you shine on, my little sparkler, shine on through and through. Some people try to bring your spirits down, and others try to lift them up. Some people carry their burdens on their shoulders, and other people just give up. See, not everyone can be strong all the time. This I know to be true, but you just shine on, my little sparkler, shine on through and through. Some people talk about things they don't know. They tell you that their lies are true, and other people listen to whatever they are told, blind their whole lives to the truth. Not everyone can stay true to the light, but everybody pays their dues. So you just shine on, my little sparkler, shine on through and through. Some people shine early in the morning and flicker when the day is through. Some people shine all night long, but fade when the day is new. Not everyone can shine all of the time. It's something not everyone can do. So you just shine on, my little sparkler, shine on through and through. So I'm watching you sleep with a tear in my eye. I kneel down and I say a little prayer that I make it through to be reunited with you someday, somehow, somewhere. But not every story ends in a happy ever after. So promise if I don't pull through, that you will shine on, my little sparkler, shine on through and through. 'Cause not every story ends in a happy ever after. So promise if I don't pull through, you will shine on, my little sparkler, shine on through and through. Thank you. It was very hard for me to communicate to a 3-year-old that I was leaving and that I may never come back. And that's what I did. I went to a war. Surprisingly, I'm going to tell you very little about the war and the combat experience. I'm just going to tell you the most important things you need to know. That in the military, in the combat experience, in the war zone, where there's 4 things. 3 things we try to do: keep ourselves alive, keep our buddies alive, and accomplish the mission. And the entire time you're there, all you think about is when you get home, to those things you said goodbye to. You keep yourself alive, you keep your buddies alive, and you accomplish the mission to the best of your ability. And the whole time you're there, you just dream about when it's over and when you can go back to all those things you left behind. For me, I paused the movie, which was my life. I put on the uniform, traveled across the country, and fought a war for 11 months. And then when I got done, I wanted to come home and unpause that movie. I'm going to tell you a short story. While I was in Iraq, all of my stuff was placed in a storage shed. All of my worldly belongings, all my physical stuff was in a storage shed while I was over in Iraq for 11 months. I came home from a very hot desert combat climate in uniform, landed in Appleton, Wisconsin, to a very muggy, wet, peaceful, sleepy little Wisconsin. And I was very happy to be home, and it was very immediate. I'd just been in a combat zone. 48 hours later, I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. We got off the plane, and my sister picked me up at the airport. And the first place we stopped after 11 months of combat was the liquor store. And I was standing at the liquor. I hadn't had options for a long time. My options were very limited in Iraq. So I said a bottle of wine and a 6-pack of beer, and I'll make the decision later. We rented a truck, and we went to the storage unit to get all my stuff. And I had a little place in Neenah just waiting for me, a little home. I was so excited to get my life back, to just be home. So excited. We showed up to that storage unit, and unfortunately, the spring of 2004 in the Fox Valley of Wisconsin had seen unprecedented rains like they had never seen before, which led to the flooding of the streets and of the basements and of, you guessed it, the storage unit. My stuff, everything I owned, had been in this storage unit waiting for me to come home for 11 months. And for the last 2 months, it was molding and rotting. And if you've ever experienced mold or water damage, you know that that smell does not come out. I stood with my sister with the truck in front of the storage unit. We lifted up that door, and a waft of funk came out of that storage unit like I had never smelled before. And ladies and gentlemen, I was in a combat unit in a tent with 14 people who didn't shower. That smelled bad, but the smell coming out of that storage unit was so horrible. And my sister began to weep. And I'm standing there looking at all my stuff, molding and rotting, gone. I took one look at her. I took one look at the truck. I looked at the dumpster, and I said, take this. I didn't use the word stuff, but I'll say that now. There's a different S word. Take this stuff, put it in the truck, put it in the dumpster. I don't care. I'm so happy to be home. It didn't even faze me. It didn't even register as a problem. I was back. The world was over. I was home. I was going to unpause my movie, which was my life, and get back to hanging out with my 3-year-old son. We went to the house that I had rented. I didn't have hardly anything. I was able to salvage a few things. I had this guitar, 2 duffel bags, a 6-pack of beer, a bottle of wine, 1 pair of civilian clothes, and that was it, in an empty house. And my sister, she told her to drive away, and I just sat down, and I pulled out a pen, and I wrote this song because I was so happy to be home. I need a comfortable place where I can lay my head. I need somewhere that I can call home that is more than just a bed. I need a welcome mat, maybe a calico cat, and someone to chew the fat. 'cause I'm so happy to be home. I was so far away, and every day was more of the same. You can run, but you can't hide from all the stuff you're burying down inside. Eventually you gotta let it out, and right now I just wanna shout that I'm so happy to be home. No place that I'd rather be, but for quite some time that wasn't up to me. I'll just sit here and see what the world will bring today. Take it one day at a time, pour myself another glass of wine and say thank God that I'm alive today. I just want to thank God that I'm alive today. I've unpacked my duffel bag and I threw away those old dog tags. Right now I'm gonna steal a little time, I'm gonna steal a little time away. I'm gonna sit right here and strum this song, and I might even sing it all night long, 'cause I'm so happy to be home. I need a new pair of tennis shoes. I gotta find me a lover that won't give me the blues. I need someone that I can talk to that'll listen to me whine. I need a little time for myself, so I gotta get some books and maybe a bookshelf. But I'm so happy to be home. I'm gonna sit right here home by myself, 'cause I don't need anybody else to tell me just how proud of me they are. 'Cause I've been around long enough to know that I don't need that stuff. You know, temporary has a way of wearing thin. And all this welcome home, good job, we're so proud of you bullshit is wearing thin. I need a little dog in a country farm. I need a woman I can hold in my arms. I need a new pair of guitar strings, and I gotta unpack just a couple more things. But right now I'm gonna sit right here, kick my feet up and have me a couple more beers, 'cause I'm so happy to be home. Yes, and I'm so happy to be home. Thank you. What I want to tell you there is that everything I owned was destroyed and I didn't care. It was unimportant. I can get more stuff. I was just so happy to be home. I was so happy to unpause the movie. The new mission was to begin to live my life again, to continue my degree in school, to spend time with my friends and family, to not be in the war zone anymore. I had done what I needed to do over there. I'd kept myself alive to the best of my ability. I'd kept my buddies alive, and to the best of my ability, I'd accomplished the mission, and now I was home. I had a new mission, just to enjoy life. But things started to happen almost immediately when I got home. I went to a Target to get a camera. I walked into the store, and the next thing I knew, I was backed into the furthest corner I could find of the store and having this massive anxiety attack, and I didn't know why. It was just a Target store. It was just a normal environment. I was beginning to hear things far away that you shouldn't be able to hear. A car door would slam 4 blocks away and it would register, and it would interrupt my conversation I was having with my friend or family. I'm home 3 or 4 days talking, and all of a sudden I would just stop and make note that someone was moving over there. I was being able to sense violence. I would go see music at a venue with my friends, and all of a sudden I would just say, "Get ready." And they would say, "Why?" And then a fight would break out over there. And these things were not planned. I didn't want these things. Oftentimes I would be in an environment with my friends and family, and I would just suddenly start to weep uncontrollably. I'd run into the bathroom and start slapping myself in the face. What What is going on? Pull it together. Get back to the new mission of being home. And when this would happen, these symptoms that I didn't have any concept of what they were, I felt like they were interfering with my new mission, which was to get my life back on track and to just be home. And when this would happen, I would get very depressed and I would start drinking. And that 6-pack of beer turned into a case of beer. And the bottle of wine began to turn into a bottle of whiskey. And I would drink and be depressed because I couldn't accomplish the new mission of being home. And after a certain amount of time, a little drill sergeant that everyone who's ever been in the military has in their head from the combat zone would reach down into my brain and say, get up, Specialist Moon. You are a combat soldier. You are a combat engineer. You are too strong for this. You are too tough for this, and you are too smart for this. You shoot, move, communicate, stay alert, stay alive. Get up. And I would pull myself back together and slap myself back into reality and charge back into my life, ready to live it again. I can do this. I can do this. This is what I was waiting for the whole time I was over there. And inevitably those symptoms would come, they'd overpower my life, they'd interfere with my life, and I'd sink back into that depression. And I'd start to drink again. And then I'd get depressed and drink more, and then I'd look in the mirror and say, this is not me. What is going on? Why can't I control this? I'd slap myself in the face, I'd jump back in the game. Every time that happened, I'd look at the person who was abusing the alcohol, who I didn't recognize, and I'd say, this is the last time you get the best of me. I got it now. I got it figured out. Sometimes I'd go 5 days without sleep, and when I did sleep, I was scared to sleep. And then when I did sleep, sometimes it would be just for 45 minutes. I'd go to sleep and then wake up. You can do that for a long period of time. I went to the VA, and I said, I can't sleep. And I went to the physical doctor, because that's what I thought this was a physical problem. So I went to the primary care guy, and I said, I can't sleep. And he said, we don't give sleeping pills to healthy people. So I confided in him that it had been almost 22 days of getting 45 minutes to an hour of sleep each night. And he said, you need to go to mental health. And I said, I don't need your help. And I walked out of the VA, and I didn't go back. My military training had taught me that I could outmaneuver this, that I could outwill this, I could outthink it, I could outstrength it. I didn't know what it was, and I thought I was crazy. I was repeating this cycle of substance abuse, and then I was isolating from my friends because I was embarrassed by the behaviors that I was exhibiting. And this cycle of symptoms, of the symptoms interfering with my life, getting depressed, using alcohol, pulling myself out of the depression, having the symptoms that went on for 4 years. Undiagnosed and all by myself. And each time that would happen, each time I'd pull myself out, I kept saying to myself, this is the last time that this happens. And then of course it would happen again. I look out my window and what do I see? I see a mean old world staring back at me, and it ain't got one thing nice to say. I've been down and I've been out, but I stood up and I began to shout, this is the last time you get the best of me. This is the last time, go on and let me be. And I feel empty of my own accord, and I feel lonesome and extremely bored, like the only thing left to do is drink. When I get to drinking, I get to thinking, this ain't the way that I wanna live. So This is the last time you get the best of me. This is the last time. Go on and let me be. See, I've been places you don't ever want to be, and I have seen things I pray you never have to see, and it's left me feeling cold and ashamed. But when you got nothing, then you got nothing to lose. So I got nothing that I need to prove. This is the last time you get the best of me. This is the last time. Go on and let me be. I used to find joy just about anywhere, and I could sing out a song without a single care. Now all these things that I used to love don't mean a goddamn thing, 'cause now I just sit here staring at my wall, waiting for the paint to peel or the sky to fall. But this is the last time you get the best of me. This is the last time. Go on and let me be. This is the last time. Why won't you let me be? Thank you. I hope you're enjoying this format. Teaching for a little bit, then singing for a little bit, and no PowerPoint. I hope you've gotten comfortable with it, because I'm going to give you a quick lesson in the military. Now that you just got comfortable with that, I'm going to change it. That's how the military goes. What I didn't know at the time was I had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. 4 years undiagnosed. When I was first diagnosed, I got a pamphlet from the VA that read something like this. PTSD is a group of symptoms such as depression, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, nightmares, hypervigilance, difficulties with sleep and relationships, etc., etc., that happen to perfectly normal people as a direct result of being in a traumatic situation. That's what I latched onto and was very important to me. That happens to perfectly normal people as a result of being in a traumatic situation. The fundamental force underlying the symptoms of PTSD are the re-experiencing of the trauma, followed by attempts to suppress or bury any memories or associated feelings. The driving, fundamental impetus force of PTSD is a re-experiencing of the trauma, immediately followed by attempts to avoid memories and associated feelings. As I started to advance in my healing, the military had taught me, the more you know about your enemy, the more you know about the person who's trying to hurt you, the better you can stop them from hurting you. So once I was diagnosed with PTSD, and once I realized that it was normal, and it was a normal response, and that I wasn't weak, I began to investigate it. So I'm going to unpack this a little further. PTSD is it's clustered into 3 symptom groups. The re-experiencing symptoms, hyperarousal symptoms, and avoidance and numbing. Re-experiencing symptoms. This is the first group of clusters. These are intrusive thoughts, such as smells, sounds. The important thing I want you to get here is this is external. Right? A sight, a sound, a car backfires, I think it's a gunshot. External, intrusive thought. But it's also internal. It's also nightmares, self-blame, guilt, self-talk, and emotions. So as I just said, there's a 4th of July, fun event for all of you, not for me. Fireworks go off. It reminds me of gunfire. I have a re-experiencing of traumatic, and that's an external stimuli. Sometimes also, on the other hand, I'm lying in bed at night, if I do get to sleep, and I start to have a nightmare. That's internal stimuli. I hope I'm breaking that out good. So, re-experiencing symptoms, external or internal. The next group of cluster of symptoms is hyperarousal. So this is hypervigilance. It's a constant state of being alert and aware of your surroundings. I don't know if there's any veterans who are in the room with PTSD, but if they are, they're probably on the edges and near the door, and they're alert and they're aware. They're hyper-aroused. This is the second group of symptoms. They know where all the exits are. You're always prepared for danger. You're always prepared for what's going to happen next. You're hyper-aroused. This presents itself in an exaggerated startle response. If you walk up behind a veteran with PTSD and you say, boo, then you'll get an exaggerated startle response. Sleep disturbances, because you cannot be alert and aware when you're sleeping. So you veterans start to do this thing where they are actually half asleep and half aware of their surroundings. Always on guard, always anticipating danger, always at the ready. I call this combat mode. This is when you're in combat mode. This is hyperarousal symptoms. The third cluster is avoidance and numbing. So avoidance of anything that reminds you of the trauma. 4th of July, I don't go there anymore. I just don't go. I go as far away as I can possibly get of anyone who's going to light fireworks on the 4th of July. That's avoidance. Denial, isolation, detachment, staying away from people, places, situations, anything that would remind you of the trauma, you avoid. That's how you take care of those external triggers. Well, what about the internal ones? What about the nightmares? What about the blame? What about the guilt? How do you get rid of that? Numbing. Veterans are very good at numbing. We usually use drugs or alcohol to numb those associated feelings. We call it, in the work I do, we call it self-medication. There might be a test at the end, right? So be paying attention. You'll know it's on the test if I say it 3 times. So if I say the 3 major symptoms, clusters of PTSD are re-experiencing hyperarousal and avoidance and numbing, I've said it 3 times now, so you know it's going to be on the test. How do they expect a man to do the things that I have and come back and be the same? The things I've done that I regret, the things I've seen I can't forget, for this life and so many more. And I'm trying to find my way home, and the child inside me is long dead and gone, somewhere between lost and alone. I'm trying to find my way home. And I have seen another side, another slice of the pie that didn't seem too fair to me. People who did not deserve the suffering that they incurred. Freedom ought to be free. And I'm trying to find my way home, and the child inside me is long dead and gone, somewhere between lost and alone. I'm trying to find my way home. And whether we lose or win, I'm so sick and tired of the spin. I don't think I can take any more. If the truth must stay in disguise, hidden beneath all the lies, then what were we fighting for? And I'm trying to find my way home. The child inside me is long dead and gone, somewhere between lost and alone. I'm trying to find my way home. And I was trying hard to keep a smile as I looked into the eyes of my child and told him where Dad has to go. But after Daddy went away, he's come back and he ain't the same as the man that you used to know. And I'm trying to find my way home. And the child inside me is long dead and gone, and somewhere between lost and alone. I'm trying to find my way home. So now I'm sitting here with time to kill, just staring out my windowsill and trying so hard to forget. In time I may forgive myself, but history repeats itself and it burdens my soul with regrets. And I'm trying to find my way home. And the child inside me is long dead and gone, somewhere between lost and alone. I'm trying to find my way home. And lately it's occurred to me, it's hard to fight an enemy that lives inside of your head. To spend my life in between the sleepless nights and the bad dreams, I think I might rather be dead. Still I'm trying to find my way home. And the child inside me is long dead and gone, somewhere between lost and alone. I'm trying to find my way home. So how do they expect a man to see the things that I have and come back and be the same? Thank you. I want to take now a moment to go inside of PTSD a little further, and I'm going to review that summary I gave you, and you can consult the DSM-5 manual if you want more information. But PTSD, in its immediate sense, is really about fight, flight, or freeze. We all know, most people know fight, flight. There's a third one, it's freeze. So, real quick, how many of you have ever had a close call on an icy Wisconsin road when a deer comes out? It comes out in the road, right? You're just sitting there, you're driving, you're talking, you're paying attention to the radio, you know, there's a conversation going on, and all of a sudden, immediately, this deer comes out in the road, and immediately you do things, right? You swerve or you don't, but you react. And when it's over, when everyone in the car goes, oh, and your heart's beating really fast, you might feel like you have to urinate. There's a whole reason for that, but so we've all had that experience, right? To some degree, the close call. That is your fight, flight, or freeze. Now, I want to break this down a little further into what's actually going on in the brain as I understand it. Information is coming in to your body at all time through your external senses. And it's received by your hippocampus. All that information comes into your brain. It's received by the hippocampus, and it's sending it up to your frontal lobe, which is right here. I call that the thinking brain. That's the part that realizes that you're at a conference right now. That's your thinking brain, the me. And that information is all being referenced against a database of memories that are stored in your hypothalamus. And it's shooting them down to that place. And it's running them by a reference set of memories. It's a reference point. And if there is a threat, when the deer jumps in the road, it triggers a response from your amygdala, which is the lizard brain. That lives somewhere back in here. And it's one of the oldest part of the brains. And that triggers fight, flight, or freeze. And that triggers a whole myriad of chemical reactions and hormones and releases that do all this stuff to your body. But you're in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. So here's the exercise. I want to do a thought experiment with you to better illustrate this. So come with me on this journey, if you will. You're walking through a beautiful park out here, right? You're taking a walk through the woods out here in the Dells. I encourage it. If you're here and you have time, it's beautiful. Maybe you're with your family, you're talking, it's really nice. You hear the sound of kids playing at the water park, right? That references through that whole process. Hippocampus says, no, it's not a threat. You walk into the trail and you're talking and you're just enjoying the day and you're just generally having a really good time, and you hear some rustling of leaves in the trees. That goes into your brain through your senses, through the hippocampus, goes to the hypothalamus, and it shoots back. Squirrel, dog, I don't know. Don't pay attention. It's not a bother. You keep walking, the rustling in the leaves gets a little louder, and you start to smell something. Maybe it's kind of like BO and dog poop, right? And you're like, maybe you turn to your friend and you go, what? Did you not shower today? You run it through your reference points, right? BO and dog poop. Why am I smelling that? But you're still okay. And you take another step, and then out comes this gigantic bear towering over you, right? Oh, it's right there. Immediately, your amygdala is triggered. Fight, flight, or freeze. If you froze, you're probably not at the table today. You probably became lunch, and you won't be at the conference. If you fought it, you've got some pretty cool stories to tell at the bar later on. And if you fled, you survived. And you can understand why your body would want to remember that experience, right? Because you survived not getting eaten by a bear. Important experience for walking in the woods. I mean, there's not a lot of bears out there. You're safe to walk in the woods. I just want to tell you that. But what your body does for you is it's going to store that in a different place in your amygdala, right? In the combat experience, we are continually exposed to the same trauma again and again and again. What I want you to understand here, post-traumatic stress disorder is a real and physical change to the brain. It's not a state of mind. It's not something you can get over. What your body does for you in the combat zone is it helps you out. What it does for you is it says, you know that thinking part of the brain and that hypothalamus that has to register all those ideas, that takes too much time. And we're just going to skip that. And you become hardwired. So those external sounds, all that external stimuli comes into your brain, bypasses this part, goes right to your amygdala. So you can be a PTSD veteran, and you can hear an external stimuli that triggers a re-experiencing experience and puts you in hyperarousal, and you don't even know it. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. You don't know that has happened. Sitting at the park with your family, having a wonderful day, and all of a sudden, why is my heart racing? Why am I starting to pay attention to the doorways? You don't even know what's triggered you. So I think we need a recap on post-traumatic stress disorder. I know I do. Would you guys appreciate one?